My name is Robert Klein. We can talk about the technology, the internet, and the search engines, but what about the devices themselves? I see a whole young generation of my grandchildren and their peers growing up with it and using their thumbs instead of their brains. And almost it's like a pacifier for young children. And so how can that possibly really produce young adults or teenagers who are smarter? How can it do anything but hold back the brain from achieving its full potential?
Let me take it to Nick Carr first.
Sure. I think the negative effects influence people of all ages, 80-year-olds as well as 10-year-olds. But I do think it's particularly dangerous for young children whose we know their brains are in the process of being formed. And we also know that the best thing you can do for a child is to give them lots of different experiences, interacting with the world in lots of different ways, playing with clay, interacting with people face to face. And what we're doing often with even ever younger children is putting more and more of their attention on screens. And we're seeing this in schools, we're seeing it out of schools. And I think it's hard to conclude from what we know about child development that kind of giving this more and more constrained way of interacting with the world is going to produce broader-minded, more curious children. I think it's going to have the opposite effect.
Let me take the question to the other side. Are you allowed to applaud? It's David or Genevieve would like to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Genevieve.
there's a couple of things that run through that, right? Is we have a persistent anxiety about the impact of new technologies on our children. This one has a particular kind of visceralness to it. I'm willing to bet many of your parents worried about the impact of radio, rock and roll, television on all of us. The jury is in some ways still out on rock and roll, obviously, but not the rest. And there's something about why it is that we worry about technology and children in particular. And I think, there are reasons to suggest, and Nick's right on this, that a diversity of experiences is a good thing. The challenge, however, here is also beyond the kind of notion that every child is born with a smart device in one hand and only a thumb in the other. The reality is that in lots of places in the world, kids are not using new technology. In lots of places in the world, there are cultures about how technology is introduced into children that suggest that, you may be disadvantaged because there are other places, if that's your fear, that this is not happening. But I think it's a hard one to argue, right, is to say, is technology pernicious and bad for children? Well, it's an argument that's been rehearsed for nearly 200 years, and I think all of you are living proof in the room that rock and roll didn't rot your brains.
Well, maybe we would all be a lot smarter if that rock and roll thing hadn't happened.
Well, fair point. We could go look for some countries that didn't have it and see what the comparative state is.